right, but let's just talk you through now what happened as that fire broke out yesterday, because we're joined by an eyewitness to those events as they started. Ousama Itani, thank you very, very much for joining us. You have family in the area that you were visiting. Your wife used to be from this area, and you were there in the sort of initial hours when this fire broke out. Can you just tell us a bit about what you saw when you woke up to that fire?
Well, we heard sounds of sirens, we heard sounds of explosions, helicopters, and actually people screaming, and went to our window and saw that the Grenfell Tower was on fire. And this was around 1:20 in the morning. Immediately we started to just feel very panicked. We know people who live in the tower. We have friends of friends and relatives of friends who live in the tower, and that was just a real shock for us, and immediately sent us into a very panicked state. We watched over the next 10-20 minutes as the fire spread from one side of the building to the other, and within about half an hour it was fully aflame.
I've seen some of the videos that you took, and you described sort of being down near the tower after you realised what was going on. Can you just tell us a bit about what you were seeing? You were telling me that you'd seen people in the windows signalling whilst it went up in flames.
So while there was still some electricity in some of the floors, especially on the top floor, we could see one of the top floor flats was signaling, turning their lights on and off in a pattern, and we could tell that people were still trapped in the building and hadn't evacuated, even half an hour, 40 minutes into the fire. We came down to just an area just behind us here, closer to the tower, and watched from about 500 meters away as the fire progressed, and we could see evidence of life in the building. We saw, I watched myself, I watched a person behind one window standing there for about 3 hours in one of the more intact parts of the building where the firefighters were focusing some of the water. And I don't know what happened to that person, but we watched for hours as they stood at the window, made phone calls, opened the window, closed it, and that kind of thing.
Now, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that because it's Ramadan, you had a lot of the Muslim community here actually awake and able to raise the alarm. Was that your experience?
It's true. There were Muslims coming back from late prayers at the mosque, coming home, who were able to see that the fire was beginning. We had people who were getting up a bit early for the pre-dawn meal, and there was a lot of energy, I think, from the Muslim community here. As well to remember is that it's a very diverse area, and in that tower were a lot of Muslim families as well. So you have the added element of people living in this area have relatives and have friends in that tower, and so there was a large support from the local Muslim community. The group of onlookers that I stood in for 7-8 hours, the majority of them were Muslims, and just eagerly looking for any information about their relatives and their friends who were in the tower.
And what are the conversations that people in the community are having in the aftermath of this fire?
Right now the focus has shifted really to see who has survived and who has been accounted for. We have people looking for family members. I myself, I received this flyer. We found this being distributed at the local mosque, Al-Manar, last night, looking for these two girls.
I mean, these are two very, very young girls that are missing right now.
Yes, yeah, these are two girls missing from the 20th floor, and parents and friends desperately seeking any information. This kind of story is very, very frequent, and actually after the events of yesterday and watching the fire burn down and still continue to burn, unfortunately, we went home, and throughout the night, I'm sorry to say, but we heard screams of people who were coming to realize that their family members had not made it. And we went to our window and we could hear them saying things like, "She didn't make it, she didn't make it." And those kinds of like wailing and screaming happened several times throughout the night.
And I mean, you witnessed this all unfolding. How are you feeling right now about what took place? Have you been able to process what happened at all?
I don't think so. I don't think myself and my relatives have been able to process it. I think it's still such a shock, and right now we're just in that mode of trying to work as hard as we can to figure out where everyone is and see what help we can provide. Thankfully, the community centers here, the local mosque, church, and synagogue have been doing really well. Support has come in from all over the city, really, and beyond. Donations are plentiful, and now people are just looking for any help to identify where everyone is, for the people who are missing, for the people who are unaccounted for. The big question is, where are the hundreds of people who are still unaccounted for, either on the casualties list or evacuated? There are people that we just don't know about. Where have they gone? And that's the big concern that the community has right now.
Okay, thank you very, very much for sharing your story with us.